Hi, I'm Shannon Pakulis, and I'm here today with Nick McVicar. How are you, Nick?
I'm good. Happy to be here, ready to get this adventure started.
I know, absolutely. So, Garage Door Sports Network is partnering with SP Sports to bring you guys our rugby talk called Rugby A, which is really a way to connect with the Canadian rugby audience who want to know a little bit more about what's going on in the rugby world, whether that be rugby union or rugby league. So this weekend is going to be a very big weekend for rugby because we have the Guinness Six Nations. So Nick, what is the Guinness Six Nations?
The Six Nations is just a huge tournament held within the Six Nations in the northwest of Europe. It's between England, France, Ireland, Italy, Scotland, and Wales. They always compete every year. It's the 22nd edition of the tournament, and it was actually originally called the Home Nations Championship way back in 1883. After that, it became the Five Nations Championship, and then in 2000, it was changed to the Six Nations Tournament that we know and love today.
Just going back to last year's 2026 Nations, England finished first with France coming second, and then Ireland, then Scotland, Wales, and Italy. The thing about Italy is there's quite a big gap there. They are 14th in the world ranking, whereas the next team would be Wales at 9. So there is quite a big gap.
Italy is always in games, but just can never get over the hump over the last few years. They finished last in how many tournaments now? 5 straight tournaments. So you know that they're going to try to get rid of that wooden spoon. They don't want to get the wooden spoon again, but it most likely looks like they might.
Yeah, and it's been super hard on all the athletes of all the teams because of the scenario that we have to face this year with COVID and being in this bubble and being in training camp in this bubble. And I know it's even harder on Italy because they're going into it, knowing that they might not even win a game. So that is added pressure and stress on top of what all the teams are already facing. And Italy actually has a 27 game losing streak in the Guinness Six Nations. So hopefully they can break that this year. I am rooting for them, but we'll have to see what happens.
I mean, we'll have to see, obviously, and it will be interesting. The one thing that they have for their advantage is teams might take them lightly. I know that's a terrible thing to say, but sometimes it plays into a team's advantage to be playing as the underdog because no one really expects a whole lot from you. So you get to try different things. You can try different formations, you can try different squad members, and that really allows you to bring in uh, a change to the topic that's been going on for so long. You've mentioned 27 straight matches. That's not what you really want going into a tournament. But at the same time, no one expects anything from you. You can surprise. You can have players step up that no one would have thought before. So Italy could be the surprise team of the tournament. But again, right now we're putting them at 6 just because history and what the current rankings are says that they should be 6th. These are
Yeah.
6 of the top 15 nations in the world, though. Let's not forget that. It's not like Italy's like 47th in the world in rugby. They're 14th. They're not that bad.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to see what happens. I'm hopeful, but we'll see. So let's talk a little bit about the schedule this weekend. Italy actually is playing on Saturday, February 6th, against France. So we have Italy, France. It's kind of a no-brainer with this one. Who is going to win? France is one of the top teams. They are ranked 4th in the world right now, whereas Italy's at 14th, like we said. So yeah, obviously my prediction is France is going to win. I think that's a given for anybody. Last year, France came in second, just below England, and Italy was in 6th. So yeah, France, what is good for them is they have one of the best players in the world. They have Antoine Dupont, who is one of the best 9s in the world. Last year in the 2020 Guinness Six Nations Championship, he was the player of the tournament. He's a great kicker. He has good defense, and he's just ready to run. He is such a strong versatile player. There's a reason why he's one of the best. So Italy has to go up against that, which is a bit daunting. But the good news is Italy actually have a really strong player in Paolo Garbisi. There are a lot of expectations on him. He is now Italy's chance to break this 27 match losing streak. He is a really strong player. He's only 20 years old. And I think that there actually might be a lot of pressure on him, but he just might be Italy's chance to break that losing streak.
He has a chance, and he's shown that he has the dominance to play. And at 20 years old, that's really hard to do. The one thing that I've noticed a lot on the rosters is there are a lot of young players going to be in this Six Nations tournament, which means probably going to be a lot of speed, especially from the backs, but there's going to be a lot of inexperience as well. So there's going to be a lot of mistakes to be made. France is an example of that. They have a lot of young players in their squad. Now, you mentioned the Six Nations last year. They also had the Autumn Cup just a month ago, where France lost in, I always get this wrong, but it was in extra time, basically, to England with their B squad. They didn't actually have their A squad in that final game because the French league would not allow the players to play more than 3 matches. And the French coach made his first few games very top heavy, had all his stars in the first couple games, and then they made it to the final and he had no one to pick from. So he ended up using a shadow squad and they only lost by 3 points. That's a huge point in France's favor for this tournament. And that's why they're actually one of the favorites to win the tournament. I think this match, unfortunately for the Italians, is not one that they can win. There's a couple other matches that they have a better chance. The game against Wales, much, much easier of a game in comparison. But France is riding so high right now. They played so well in the Autumn Cup. They played really well last year in the Six Nations. They're coming into it playing really well. They could push England and Ireland at the top of this tournament. So I have to give this one to France, unfortunately.
Well, not a bad choice, but France actually has not won the Guinness Six Nations since 2010. So we'll see if they can do that. They are, still an up and coming team, and they do have a lot. Yeah, they have a lot of power on their team. So I'm interested to see how France does this year.
It will definitely be interesting.
So the next 2 teams that play on Saturday are England and Scotland. And I am so curious to see these 2 teams coming together to face off. I'm hopeful for Scotland. So I know that this is an unpopular opinion and most people would disagree with me, and that's okay. I'm hopeful that, Scotland could win this match, because the thing with England right now is they lost some of their best players. They have some injuries. They have, their prop Marler, who's out right now. They have Underhill, they're one of their best flankers who has a hip injury. So they have some major losses. Whereas Scotland, they have losses to their hookers, which is not the best thing. So Turner will be a hooker. He'll be starting for Scotland, but the thing I'm hopeful about is that now Scotland has Cameron Redpath on their team. And Redpath was called up for England, but he chose to play with Scotland for the 2021 Guinness Six Nations. Redpath is a young, powerful, versatile 12. Not only can he play 12, but he can play 13, fly half, fullback. And I do think that Redpath will really complement Finn Russell, who's also one of Scotland's best players.
For sure. And I think you're right there that Redpath could be a huge player for Scotland. And it's funny because his under 20 England teammate, Ollie Lawrence, is going to make his first start in this match against Redpath, who's obviously making his first start for Scotland too in the Six Nations tournament. So those two know each other really well, which can play into a benefit for both sides. Like the English squad obviously knows what Redpath is like. They trained him for many years, obviously playing in the youth system. Now he's on the other side. So they know what he likes to do. They know what he wants to do. But then he knows what they want to do too. He knows how they're going to come at him. So that could be a very interesting matchup to see where he lines up and who he lines up against and how they go against each other. For Lawrence's part, he's just as good. He actually started over Redpath in some of those games when they were on the U20 team. What that means maybe could just be a matchup thing, but we'll see how that plays out as well. Another player for England that we got to keep an eye out for is Maro Itoje. This guy
Yes.
is a tank. When you want to see some great rugby, these are the kind of players that you want to see, and Itoje is the epitome of it. To see what he's able to do in this tournament will be the key for England. This is a team that's coming in on like an 8-match win streak right now. They have not lost since one of their matches in the Six Nations last year. They won all 4 games that they played in the Autumn Cup, and now they're coming in here. They are ready to go. This first game is in England. So you had Scotland winning this one. I'm going England just because I think the experience that they have on their team, yes, they have a lot of injuries. The experience that they have on their team is going to be more valuable at home as opposed to on the road. So if this game's at home, I'm taking England.
Well, Maro Itoje, he's actually one of the best second rows in the world. This guy's insane. Like, people know he's good, but I don't think people realize like how good he actually is. He has the size, he's powerful, he can also run.
He also is coming in well rested because he was actually put on a special program by his club Saracens instead of playing in some of the Challenger Cup games that they could have played in. He's been on a personal program. He hasn't played in a while. He will be rested, ready to go for this tournament.
Yeah, and I do think that he is hard to play against as well. So it could be a tough one for Scotland. But what Scotland really need to focus on is the bigger picture. I think, when it comes to facing England, there's a lot of pride involved. They want those bragging rights to be able to say, we beat England.
Yeah.
But they need to focus on the bigger picture, and that's racking up the points. That's one of the reasons why England beat France last year, because France was just losing in those points, but it doesn't necessarily mean that England is the better team. It's just about racking up those points. So that's really what Scotland needs to focus on, is just like winning every game, but also getting the points that they need.
Absolutely. No, you're right. And I think if they can build on that right away in this first game, yeah, they might not win it, but if they can build that kind of mentality in game 1, it carries over for the rest of the remaining 4. So that's the biggest part right there.
Yeah. The next 2 teams that will face each other, it's on Sunday, and that is Wales versus Ireland. This one will be a bit of a more even match, I think.
This will definitely be the closest of the 3.
Yeah, I do think so. If I had to make a prediction, I would say Ireland is going to win this one. And I'm just basing that off of, their ranking, the world ranking, which is 5th, as opposed to Wales, which is 9th in the world. Also, just based on last year, they finished 3rd, whereas Wales finished 5th. So perhaps there is some sort of change here with Wales. I know that in 2019, actually, Wales, they were the Guinness Six Nations champions, and they also got the Grand Slam, which means that they were like that one team that beat all the other teams.
So they won all 3 big ones. They got the Six Nations, the Grand Slam, and they also got the Triple Crown.
Yeah, so we saw that in 2019. Like, Wales was a dominant, strong team overall. In 2020, they got a new coach, Wayne Pivac. I'm not sure. I might have butchered that one as well, but perhaps, there might be some adjustments that had to be made getting a new coach. And maybe after a little bit of a rough one last year, this year, they're more comfortable, they're more confident. They also have a really strong player, that's Louis Rees-Zammit. He is from Gloucester. He's a winger, and he made his debut in 2020. He is a very powerful player as well. Could do a lot for Wales. So, it's going to be a close one, Wales versus Ireland. Ireland's best player, Caelan Doris, unfortunately is out for the first game with concussion symptoms. So having one of their best players out can be very detrimental.
For sure. And anytime you lose a key member of your leadership group, there's going to be issues. And I think the experience on the Irish team as well might help them out. They have a couple guys who have been in the squad for multiple years, all the way back to their 2018 victory when they won against England in the final of the Six Nations. That was an incredible match, by the way. I was actually in Ireland the day that happened. That was fun.
Lucky you.
Well, it was also St. Patrick's Day.
Wow.
So it was just a party from the morning getting ready for the game and then after. It was awesome. So much fun. Just fun being in the streets, being around that atmosphere. We don't get to see that a lot here in North America. I've never had an experience where it's like that, where everyone, wasn't just like a specific few people, like everyone was out. Everyone, you could feel the atmosphere grow. You had the St. Patty's Day parade, and then everyone disappeared to go watch the game, either into a pub or at home. Everyone was watching. We don't get that here. Not even in hockey. It is just a European, like soccer, football, or rugby. Like, it's incredible to see. But this Irish squad has the experience. They've been there before. They've been the underdog before. They're not necessarily the underdogs anymore after that 2018 campaign. They did a great job putting multiple matches together where they were successful. So I think they have the ability to go far. James Ryan, sorry, I always get that wrong. James Ryan is going to be a huge player for them in this tournament, because if he's able to help lead in the absence of some of the big names, then they are going to be fine. If he struggles in the first game or two, they might struggle as well. So that will be definitely an interesting thing to look into. And on the Wales side, a more experienced player like Bigger is going to be huge for them. He's 31. He's a little bit older, but in comparison to the two other fly halves that they have, he has 87 test caps. The other two have 10 combined. That kind of experience is going to be key for a Welsh side who is trying to get younger. You still need the guys who have been there, done that before. So it will be interesting to see how they play.
Mm-hmm. Especially Johnny Sexton for Ireland.
Yeah.
He's their captain. He's 35 years old, which is getting old for a rugby player. But that being said, he has the experience.
Yes.
So Ireland definitely have this experience. And I wonder if maybe Wales is lacking that right now with having a fairly new coach. Maybe the overall team connection just might be lacking. So I'm not too sure on that one, but it could be an issue.
For sure. It could be something that they look into. And I mean, they haven't exactly had a whole lot of success, the Welsh squad, over the last little bit either. So if Ireland is looking to push for the championship, they need to take care of Wales in the first round. And if they don't, questions will be asked. And if Wales is able to pull out a victory after having struggled so much, they're going to be on the right path to competing this year in the Six Nations. So this match is huge for both nations.
Mm-hmm. And back to what you were saying about being in Ireland, during that time, I think this is why all of these matches are so intense, because in Europe, there's so much passion and pride that go into every team and every match you play. The only time I've ever seen that in Canada was when the Raptors won the championship. I've seen a lot of pride there, but otherwise you have that more so in Europe. And it just makes every single minute of every single match just more intense. So I think it'll be a great weekend for anyone who wants to watch some rugby. Again, those matches are on Saturday and Sunday, so make sure you catch those. And we'll be back again next week. to do a little bit of a recap and to look forward to round 2.
Absolutely. Look forward to it. And if anyone wants betting odds, make sure you check them out because there's some great odds out there on this tournament, especially these matches.